While Selene is undoubtedly a good card in the Junk archetype, I'd really only recommend getting this card if you're missing some of the other Spotlight cards she's with. How you doing? Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Look what my brother gave me. It's supposed to be Lulu from League of Legends. When I used to play that a while ago. I have never seen the skin before, but it's pretty cool. Definitely put it up on the wall. But we're talking about Selene today, how good she is, and should be a fun one. All right, let's take a look at Selene. She's a 1 energy, -1 power, so she's hurts you. But she has this cool on reveal, affects the lowest power card in each player's hand with -3 power. So you end up kind of hurting both you and your opponent. Essentially, though, you want to be playing her in a way where even the -3 that goes to your hand, you can kind of move to your opponent or mitigate or not care about it in any meaningful way. So you really get to like double dip in this -3 power, turning it to a -6 for a 1 cost. And if you can also move or remove Selene herself, right, this could be a really powerful 1-drop that can really just mess with your opponent in a meaningful way. So, fortunately, this is a card you do have to kind of build around, or you have to be aware that, oh, this is something that could happen in your decks. A lot of times people are just playing it with goblins or just with just general cards that you don't mind giving to your opponent or messing with your opponent. So it's a nice synergy card with Junk. People have been experimenting as well with Galactus. I think you've seen, the Galactus players always want to try something new. This is their new thing. Giving people like a -11 Hobgoblin is pretty effective to making sure your Galactus does go off. So that is something good. And just general being able to Viper anything that it synergizes with. A lot of people have been messing with combo with Black Widow. If you do it on turn 4, you could just give them a -4 Widow bite, which is pretty toxic, right? Things like that. So there's definitely been some good synergies with this card, but it is kind of restricted to the Junk archetype, to maybe Galactus. It's a little bit more something that you have to play around. So when you're just trying to put this into a random deck, it doesn't really work as well as you would hope, right? So Ravonna definitely can take advantage of it, and things that are just running goblins and things like that. But if you are just trying to splash this card, it doesn't really work that well. So when it comes to whether you should get this card or not, overall, my opinion is that you'd really only get this card if you need the other spotlight cards. I don't know why I can't see the slide yet. If you need the other spotlight cards, that's really where I would lean towards it. Or if you're a big Junk player, maybe a Galactus player, you want to try this card, I would say then you can really focus on getting it. But for most players, this is more of a niche card that has a good archetype to build into. So if you like Junk, yeah, this is a good card to pick up. However, if you're not really the big fan of like, oh, I want to play, goblins and debris and vipering cards like that, then you're really not going to find a lot of opportunities to really, find a use for this where it feels elegant or feels fun to play. So it really has to fit that particular type of player that likes playing Junk. So it's hard to say, oh yeah, just get this. This is gonna, be in a meta deck that you like to play. However, if you're a Junk player, this is a good card to have in your collection just to kind of mix things up or add into your rotation of Junk stuff. Now, I will also say this has one of the better spotlights. All 3 cards in the spotlights are 6,000 tokens. So if you are missing 2 or so of the cards, like this can be a really good pickup, especially if you're missing Ironlad. I think Ironlad is one of those cards everyone wants in their collection. So it's definitely, if you're missing Ironlad, this is definitely a good spotlight to pick up. So I would definitely say I would lean to pick up this, or try to pick up the cards in the spotlight if you are missing most of them. But if you're just trying to shoot for Selene and you already have Ironlad, you already have Black Knight, then unless you're a Junk player, I wouldn't really be giving this the highest priority. So that's my overall thoughts there. So when we look at the actual spotlight, right, we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but we can kind of go over to what's actually in there, right? So you can see Selene, Iron Lad, Black Knight, right? Those are generally pretty good cards. I will say Iron Lad definitely the highest priority card in this whole list, right? This is a card you definitely want. So I would say if you're just missing Iron Lad and Selene, like yeah, I would say go for it. If you're missing Black Knight did get a buff and it is better now. I wouldn't necessarily say it's been dominating the meta, but honestly, not a lot of people have had Black Knight, so maybe there's just a lot of experimentation that needs to be done to really finalize how good Black Knight is. But the general consensus so far on Black Knight is it's playable for sure, but it isn't like meta warping or anything, you know, no blob level tactics or anything like that. But I do think like being able to, if you're lucky, get a 20 power Emily Blade is a pretty effective thing to do that can't be destroyed or even negated in power. So there's definitely some valuability with Black Knight. So overall, like these are three, I would say, cards that could see play in the future. So definitely something to look at. But Iron Lad is the one that you really want. So if you're missing that, go get that here. Now, when it comes to some decks to kind of play this card in, there are a couple that kind of jump my eye. The first one here is just not really fully using Selene, but you have some good hits, right? You have the Hood. You also have the Black Widow. Those are like your two main combos to do. Or you could also just Annihilate. So this is kind of a junk deck, kind of a Nihilist deck, but it's less junky and just has that Zabu engine. But you do have the ability of just playing Selene with the Hood, Selene with the Black Widow, and then just using that to kind of mess with your opponents later on. You don't have like the highest ceiling, right? There's not too much 5s or 6, but you do have the turn 6 Darkhawk Rock Slide or double 4-drop play that you are usually familiar with if you're a Zabu player. So definitely something to take a look at if you do run Selene. I think it works pretty well. Next up we have is the Galactus version. So this is just a list that can take advantage of Galactus. You have a lot of little tools there. So essentially the idea here is you kind of want to clog your opponent's lane. So it's not necessarily I want to be playing Galactus early on in the game, right? There's no ramp. What you're just trying to do is find a lane that your opponent is maybe like unintentionally investing in, and then you can debris, goblin, hood it away with the Annihilus. Like you can find a way to full clog that lane, and if it's under 5, then you can just Galactus, or under 10 in some circumstances with Miss Marvel as well. You can just Galactus. Though if it's under 10, like you still like the Marvel will die, right? So under 5, let's just say it like that, right? Then you can really do the work. And even if you don't have a line to win with Galactus, like you still have good late game options. Goblin into Annihilus Demon is just a good 5 into 6. So there's just good lines regardless. So it's not like, oh, if you don't win Galactus, you can't win. It's like Galactus is the more like elegant way of, or fun way of winning with this particular deck list. Next up, we have Ravonna being added in here. So this is kind of just like taking advantage of the ability of the discounts for Ravonna and the goblins, right? Ravonna and goblins have great synergy because they all cost 1 less. So you get to play that with Selene, and then you just summon 4 power goblins, and you're just taking advantage of the generic Annihilus discount engine, and you just have all these little tools to kind of work with. So that's the idea here. Just a fun deck. Nice thing about Shadow King is that even if your Selene hits Shadow King, it's going to just go back to original power. So it's just generally an easy target if you're not hitting the goblin. That works decently well. And then the last list I have here is another Ravonna list. This one kind of taking advantage of Havok as well. So you do have this kind of Havok combo with Viper if you want to use that. Or you can just Viper something else that you don't really want to be playing with generically, right? Usually it's the Hood. But generally I know as well, you get to take more advantage of Ravonna. You get the Iron Mat. I'm definitely considering like how viable it is to, like, let's say you Selene the Iron Man, then you give the Iron Man away to the opponent, right? It's a -3 double, and then you like finish it up with like another Goblin on top or Hobgoblin or whatever, right? So you're just having this like insanely horrible lane for your opponent. So that's definitely something to look into. But this is just another kind of Selene list. You can see they all kind of have that junk feel, and that's kind of the issue if you're trying to just pick Selene up for as like a general card. It really works best if you have synergies of giving something to your opponent or making your opponent's worse and having an advantage of making your opponent's cards worse. So that's the one issue, but it is next to a lot of good spotlights. So spotlight cards. So that's really the main drive I would say for this week in the collection. If you are missing Ironline in particular, that's something I would look for. So overall, that's my quick thoughts on Selene. Do you like it? Do you not? Let me know. And happy holidays. You know. Yep. Bye bye.
Educated calling snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be